Excellent. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon or good morning if you're joining us from the West Coast. And welcome to the third event in our Outcomes Estimation Tools Training webinar series. This time, we're featuring the nutrient tracking tool for water quality, water quantity, and economics metrics. Thank you for being here today. I'm Michelle Perez. I'm the Water Initiative Director for American Farmland Trust, and I'm joined by my two colleagues, Aysha Tapp Ross, Water and Soil Health Scientist, and Kinsey Reese, or I think it's Rice, Ag Conservation Innovations Program and Communications Manager. For those of you who don't know, American Farmland Trust is a national nonprofit founded in 1980, and our mission is to save the land that sustains us by protecting farmland, promoting sound farming practices, and keeping farmers on land and preparing for the next generation of farmers. Next slide. For today's webinar, and after a few reminders and a quick poll to see who's in the room, we will quickly turn to hear from Dr. Ali Saleh about the nutrient tracking tool. He will first lead us in a presentation and then a demonstration of the nutrient tracking tool. And we have reserved the last 15 minutes of this webinar for Q&A and discussion. And we want to thank our funders, the EPA Office of Water and the Walton Family Foundation, for making this webinar series possible. I'm now going to turn it over to Aysha for some housekeeping reminders.
Thanks, Michelle. Hi, everyone. This is Aysha Tapp Ross. We are using the Zoom webinar platform for this series. So that means as attendees, you will have your camera and microphones off throughout the event. You can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen at any time to ask questions, and the speakers will answer the questions during the last 15 minutes of the event. You can use your name or be anonymous when asking questions or making comments. You can also vote up questions you want to be prioritized. If you're having any technical difficulties, you can direct message Kinsey and she will try to help you out. Following each webinar, you will receive an email within 3 to 4 days that will provide the recording and the slides for the presentations, as well as information about the next month's speaker. And by the following Monday, we will post the recordings to the webinar registration page, which we absolutely welcome you to share with colleagues and friends that may be interested in viewing. To help us improve our webinar series, Kinsey is sharing a link to a 6-question anonymous evaluation survey that should take about 2 minutes to complete. Please click on that now so it opens in a new tab on your browser, and please complete the survey right after the event ends. So let's see who is in the room for this event. We have 3 quick poll questions that you will see come across your screen. The first is which one sector best reflects your occupation: government agency, non-government organization, academic institution, corporation or environmental markets firm, or other. Question 2, if there are only 4 types of audience members, which one best describes you: developer of outcomes estimation tools, methods, or models, current user of outcomes estimation tools, methods, or models, potential future user of outcomes estimation tools, methods, or models, or a person interested in learning about outcomes estimation tools and issues. And question 3, what is your experience level with the nutrient tracking tool? Have not heard of it but never used, heard of it and used it, or refer to it often? We'll give you a minute to fill that out.
All right, I shared the results for you, Aysha. Michelle.
Okay, so can they see the results?
Yes, I do. Would you like me to read them off? Can you not see them?
Oh, no, I can see them. I just wasn't sure the audience members could.
Great.
So it looks like most people, 60%, are from government agencies, with some non-government organizations and a few other sporadic. See, we have a really nice split of current users, potential future users, and people interested in learning about outcomes estimation tools. And it looks like most people have heard of the nutrient tracking tool, but have not used it. So thank you all.
Great, thank you. It's always nice to know who's in the room because it differs every time. And I noticed many of you did not fill out the poll, but that's okay. Thank you to those of you who did. We've got one slide left. On our webinar tools training website that I think Kinsey shared a link to, or she will share, you'll see a list of webinars in the series as we're showing you here, and all the previous recordings, including the June 7th Model My Watershed presentation, you can find easily there. And next month on August 2, we'll be hosting Brian Kerwin, who will be training on the NRCS cover crop economics tool. We hope you join that event. So without further ado, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Saleh. Please take it away. We'll stop sharing our screen and switch to your screen, Dr. Saleh.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen, correct?
Yes, please.
All right. Okay. Good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are. And welcome to this presentation. I'll try to be entertaining as well as be scientifically rich on this presentation and share what I know and what we do with you, and see if we can be of any help or assistance in future needs of your projects. I'll be talking about this version of nutrient tracking tool. Many may, as the survey shows, maybe have heard about it, some used and not, but we'll go through this. The first part of this presentation is going to be describing the entity and some of the functionality. And the second part, I will be demoing the project with some hypothetical farmers case, and follow through what needs to be done, steps needs to be required to be taken to use NTT. I am a project leader of this project, this NTT project, and also I'm executive director of Texas Institute for Applied Environmental Research. We call it here, as part of Tarleton State University, which is Tarleton itself is the member of A&M system universities, family. So the agenda today, we're going to be talking about entity description, which hopefully takes about half an hour. And we talk about history, the purpose, snapshot of entity, strength and limitation of it, to see how it's kind of matches to your needs. Does it meet your needs? And components of it, the models, the databases, conservation practices that can handle. And we talk about the scale, what scale you can use this program that, again, meet your needs. A latest modification that we have added to NTT since the last release, which is going to be this version going to be released by end of this month. And again, it's a free public access to it. And then the list of the people that attended this today webinar are going to be getting an email from us that is released. And upcoming future that's going to talk about what's going to happen and the next version of this program. And the demo of NTT, which is, as I said, part 2, about 30 minutes as well. And we're going to open the floor for questions and answers. The history of NTT was this, actually something called nitrogen tracking tool was the USDA NRCS put together a long time ago, but it was not sufficient because it was just a one-dimensional program that just dealt with the nitrogen. And was the routing function that become the questions that if I do some of those conservation practices, how can I handle that? So the task was given to us from USDA to create a model that is going to be more comprehensive. So we took that program and we put in their Apex model that we will talk about this a little bit later to make it better, and that is going to be doing a little bit more comprehensive and two-dimensional, basically. And that is where and it was purposed for the water quality trading. at the beginning. However, now is a lot more usage of NTT for many people that out there using it, such as conducting the water quality, now quantity, which is becoming an important issue right now, the water shortage. Irrigation systems, those are all related to water quantity that is NTT can handle, assessment and serve as a decision-making tool for different farm conservation and watershed project. Conducting soil health now, the NTT new version is coming in a couple of weeks, is going to have the soil health issue, which is going to be basically carbon sequestration. Number is going to show you what different practices that's going to happen, and the crop production optimization tool. So this is not only the water quality quantity, it also needs to put the sort of crop production that is the farmer is going to be really worried about that. Says, well, if I do these practices, how is it going to affect my crop yield? So we are really paying attention to that as well through these conservation practices simulations. And it could be used for planning of what is going to happen in the watershed on this sub-basin if the water quality is bad or needs to be addressed. So this tool can be used as a planning. And educational outreach. Actually, the NTT is the interface to Apex program. So people can get in there and use the education, do some sort of the calibration of their plot study they do. And that's what the research and analysis as a function as well. It functions as that as well. Let's just talk about the snapshot of this tool. Is this the right tool for you? Scale. We are having originally was created for field and farm scale, but now the potential that we have added right now, it can be used for watershed at county level and state level. Simulation. We have sister program to NTT that's on the background. It runs all of those scales and give the user the numbers that come from output from all of any of those scales. We talk about that as example later on. Site specific. It's a very much when we deal with this watershed scale of this called HRUs, or a kind of unknown where those locations come from, where the HRUs come from. But this one is a specific. You can go ahead and look for, because using the Google map, you can go specific, a special farm we will show you, and then how you can be more precise on your own farm. You might have a similar farm as the next farmer, but you do much different management, much different soils under your ground. All of those conditions become very much site specific in NTT. Outcomes of it is the water quantity. Of course, I mentioned that because it's very important now these days with the lack of water. And quality of we're talking about flow, sediment, nitrogen, phosphorus losses, and soil carbon sequestration, crop yield, of course, and economic, because the farmers want to know, or even the people, the agency that fund these for practices, how much cost and benefit it is if I do this, so I can have an appropriate budget for it. And conservation practices, I will talk about this a little bit more detail, and I'm not going to emphasize it here because of time limit, but quite a few practices you can simulate with this. We show you a list. And the next version is going to have bacteria added. I am already have a version of it that we're testing it for 2024. Herbicide, pesticide, and urban. BMP is going to be added to the next version. All land uses are being considered right now, except the urban. Although Apex has urban, but it's not comprehensively detailed, so we are working on that. But nevertheless, cropland, grazing, pasture, and forest, and whatever the capability of the Apex is being addressed in NTT. And production system is a crop row crops, cash crops, grazing livestock, vegetation, and fruit orchards. It's about 120 plus crops can be simulated. However, we are very careful to make sure we prove our concept to those crops like a corn, soybean, and wheat. And we go on for a specific location that we are working with the people that they are in that location, and like potatoes in Idaho, to make sure the model is calibrated, validated well, but opportunity is there. States and territory is the program is for all continental US and Puerto Rico, because we did have a project with them. It's available. And in Hawaii and Alaska and US territory is going to be added. We are speaking with Pacific Rim countries such as Vietnam, Taiwan, Philippines, that they're going to apply this in South America as well. So the Google map now is available for anywhere in the world. So we just have to get the databases going, and we're going to start with Hawaii and Alaska. Perform time, how does it take? We're going to be looking at one example in the second parts of this presentation. You will see how fast you can get in, get out, and get your answers. And that your answers can be graphically tabular, and it's going to be on the PDF files that you can download. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this program that download your project, delete your project, whatever it is. We talk about that in the next parts of this presentation in detail, but however, it just gives you basically what you do today, what's going to be happening tomorrow. As conservation practices is going to tell you what's going to happen to you: water quality, quantity, crop yield, and economic. And there's two versions of it that's available right now that you can access to, and I have here in presentation listed. Is the NTT tier.tolerant.edu is a public, which means the producer are going to get into this with this consultant to go ahead and run it. And then there's a research one, which is more detailed. I talk about that second parts of this presentation and the differences between two versions. So we will talk about this a little bit more detail. So that's the strength and limitation of the trade and the trade-off the NTT. It's a national coverage. So it doesn't matter if you fly from New York City all the way to California and you see all those fields under your window in the airplane, you can access to any of them. So it's a national coverage, and you can select the field of your interest. And the databases pops up once you select your land. We will talk about that as well. User-friendly interface. No software download requires. The moment we release the new version, you get access to. There's no CD we send to you and like that. You keep your eyes open on the internet side, and we will say what's the differences between the versions. So you will see. No need for waiting for us to send you any CD or files. Provide farmers with their own site-specific analysis. So you can run this at the county level, the state level, and then the farmer says, I'm interested because I'm living in this county and it's giving me something that I am interested to get involved in some programs. At the minimum, help my own soil not to be lost from my land. So you can bring this laptop and sit with the farmer, or farmer can get into it's easy training. They can go and simulate their own fields. So it's a very much like it's kind of voice of farmers and personal. So we have done that. Economic, of course, we will show you the cost and benefits of those practices that farmers get involved, so they know economically how much they're getting involved with these practices and become more applicable, because good practice always pays off, according to my experience. Flexibility scale analysis, free to all. Is not, we are doing it free to people, so they don't have to pay for anything. But for some reasons that some companies, they want to run like, but as I know, as the last numbers I have, about 500,000 fields has been run by 2 companies. And they are having a contract with A&M systems, so they can get access very, very low cost. And then we will help them to provide sites for them in Amazon.com, so they can do their work. So that's what the charge is for, but nothing for extra. We're non-profitable university. Results can be downloaded for future viewing. You can download for future viewing to the PDF files. Become an official tool. Iowa Department Environmental Quality DEQ is entertaining this, is going to be using next month as a tool. Pennsylvania DEQ, we have a 2 version of this. For one version for them is called CB NTT, Chesapeake Bay NTT. And also we wrote some training program for them as well for Maryland and Pennsylvania, and it's going to be expanding to all 7 states in Chesapeake Bay. It's a little bit more policy within that NTT program that it is on the typical version that is out there. And other uses, of course, Ohio, we work with universities there and ARS that prove the concept. They published a paper that people like Ohio welcome to use. Louisiana, we work in the release function official for their DEQ as we speak. Idaho, Oregon, California, those are states that are used by the contracting company with us that they are using NTT outside the traditional NTT version. So I'm going to go talk about limitation. Initially built for field level analysis, but we are working very hard to make sure that it's going to be available even in the watershed scale using GIS layers. And so that is the work. Hopefully completion of this. We have a function for watershed at this time. We make it more comprehensive for next version in 2024. Validation and calibration. One thing needs to be done. We are using the state program we have for different states. As you go to the NTT, you will see the list of states we have done this using the government sites and some information from literature, and we validate for major cropping system for each states, which make it available, and the list is out there to see if your state sits in it. But nevertheless, if you go and we want to make it official, as we did for Iowa, they will help us to get a specific study sites within the states for different region, and we calibrate for that, and then we send more updates and new calibration parameters for them for their states only, and it's going to be doing it. So good news is that when we do this calibration for Iowa as example, the parameters in the model did not change significantly at all. It was more for tile drain system. And also we look at their practices that they are being adopted there, like, you know, in tile system management, we modify and also work it out for them so they can use it. Give you example, in Mississippi, they had the pass and pipes. That's very unique practice, the only Mississippi and Missouri. We added that as we work with them on their project. So opportunity is there to expand this via conservation practices anywhere we go. And we share as a common denominator with everybody else in the country. Data intensive, requires significant review time. I think a new version, you will see that it's much cutting off on that time. So the farmers can see, producers can say, okay, next step. And I will show you in the second part. Difficulty with unstable internet, which, you know, and the internet is not in our hand, but it's sometimes cause issue. And for Alaska and Hawaii, which we are working on it for our next version. And entity components. There are 2 models in this. One is the Apex environmental model, which is the agricultural policy environmental extender Apex, that Dr. Jimmy Williams and many others, they have currently and in the past worked on to make it better, including myself. I added the forestry to the Apex with help from Dr. Jimmy Williams a number of years ago. So everybody's making this model. It's a great model. So the economic model is developed here at TIER, Dr. Osei, which is very, very friendly to farm practices. For example, if you change the tillage operation 1 day or 2 days, it counts for it. It's very much sensitive to what comes from Apex. I'll show you later interaction of these 2 model slides for that. Economic model is the Dr. Osei is a farm scale model, and calibrated extended data from practices and many years for funding from EPA and other projects we had. The database is enriched, a number of simulation optimization routine within it, and can be modified easily for other land uses such as forestry and urban. Environmental model. Again, APEX was developed by a USDA scientist led by Dr. Williams to predict the effect of different management scenarios on water quality, I would say quantity as well, sediment yield, and pollutant loading from various land uses within fields and watershed. And the components of it is very comprehensive. We don't use, the APEX doesn't use a statistical relationship. Is all the things that it does, it's physical based, the weather, hydrology, surface, subsurface, lateral, the tile, erosion, wind and water. We don't use the wind, we just use the water erosion in this program, nutrients, and the soil carbon, pesticide, and crop growth. The uniqueness about the APEX is that you can grow 10 crops at one time, which is very important, tropical and subtropical area where they have multiple cropping system. They all fight for the water and nutrients. And the other cases, there are the different models that they use the average curve number for a total of those different crops. But this one has simulation for the individual. Tillage operation, management, routing, reservoirs, groundwater, grazing, manure management, and climate. So this is very important for us to use a model that can address the issue that is today problem and the future tomorrow problem as well. So these models really give us that opportunity. And here's the nutrient tracking tool framework. We have input section, which is the national level data we have got for, I will explain this a little bit later where the sources are, but the soil, for example, soil survey, Sergo, and we get the weather from Prism data for every 4 kilometers. So every farm has its own kind of weather coming to it. So anyway, and then economic data that Dr. Osei has provided to us to run this model. So the APEX runs different agriculture policies, run different crop yield, nutrients to the practices and conservation practices and current condition, and pass the information to FEM. And FEM uses the analysis and gives us the comparison of economic indicators, while the APEX itself gives the comparison of environmental indicators. I show you more, a little bit of this throughout this presentation. Conservation practice currently available NTT. Components is no-till, tillage operation, no-till, high-till, and management, manure management. You can do a lot of stuff with it. The APEX is very, very familiar with the manure management that you can do in the field. And nutrient management is a kind of rate, timing, placement, source. They're all being, it's very sensitive. And we have all the databases that typically is out there in there. So you can just select, for example, type of manure is going to be cow, is going to be dairy, is going to be swine. And nutrient, if you go fertilizer commercial, what type of fertilizer commercial available out there in the country. So there's a lot of databases there, make life easy for a user. We cover crop and crop rotation, of course, can change the land use, soil health, land conversion from pasture to grass, forest, and so on. Rotational grazing and prescribed grazing. You can say how many cows there, how much they go from one place to another. Climate change scenarios, and which is going to be added to the next based on the carbon, atmospheric carbon, and it's going to be available in the next version in 2024 as one of those BMPs. So these are cultural practices that you can change within the year or from one year to another, but the structural practices are more kind of permanent, and NTT handled them as well, like irrigation, fertigation, tile drain system, different practices they do, paths and pipes, which is Mississippi and Missouri. We will show you the sample of those as well in the next parts of this presentation. Wetlands, ponds and reservoirs, grass forest buffers, waterways, terraces, land leveling, contour buffering, animal fencing. You can have how many animals don't go to stream, and then it affects the water quality as well. So these are kind of practices NTT currently today can do for you. Modification we done with that, the tile drainage modification. This is something that I just wrote a paper and it's going to go for publication, is that when, for example, bioreactor is going to reduce the nitrogen coming out of the tile. The drainage water management, you can close and open your drainage system anytime you want to, and it's going to affect the water quality and quantity as well as in crop production. So we simulate that in NTT. And saturated buffer practices, which is very much the water goes from the tile system to buffer before it goes to the tile again. So all those practices are there. That's because your Iowa needed that. A reservoir routine was added to this, a routine function between fields. Now, if you have a bunch of fields selected, the entity can, on the watershed routine, can pass it on from one field to another based on reading this slope. Sequestration that we will show you some results and the routine that was added, and development of the entity regional program, which is in this county and the state level. Operations, you can select initial, you can run for 30 years, but you want to see the results on the dry years, wet years, a specific year, graphically and tabular form. Entity allow you to do that for your report. So you can compare before in the older version, you can compare 2 or 3, I think, scenario. Now you can do as many scenario comparison you want, and the outcome. Output, the cropping operation database for regional countries was updated, improving watershed simulation. We improved the watershed simulation. You will see example of it. And inclusion of animal fencing, which is very significant, was added, and it's going to be released next month. Databases, we use the present databases up to every year. We upgrade to 2021 is the last one we have. And we do not just upgrade, also we test to make sure it's not jeopardizing anything that previously was done. And it's about 35 years, but we go to the latest year and we drop the oldest year. And it's as I said, 4 square kilometers grids in the country. So about 800,000 stations that we use. And then we go to that farm that's specifically close to that station, we download the water weather file. Soil data is going to be very much from the NRCS. Help and information user manual has been upgraded. You can talk to us, you have forum added to it. So there's a lot of stuff that's been added to make more convenience for the user. Coming carbon sequestration, and I'm just going to give you a very rough example. This is going to be presented in the ASA meeting this fall. And then I'm just going to go, and this is a practice, one study we use, and these are the fields that they were doing the study, and it shows you how the Apex entity is really simulating very well. Not only the quantity of it on sequestration, also the changes happen with different tillage management. We have out of the 100 plots and study that we have done, we show them all in this ASA meeting. Scale for use. You can use field, farm, which is combination of fields, regional watershed, which is you can use watershed scale and the county level and the state, which we are using these two right now for our purposes. And again, once they come to play, we will provide this information free of charge to people. The watershed scale is that the routing happens from one field to another until it comes to the outlet of the watershed. The regional example, I give you one. The watershed is going to be that is this watershed is going to be given example in the next part of this presentation. But I give you example of regional on the county, and we wrote a program. We take 100-acre arbitrary from each county, and then we use different soils and different weathers, and then we simulate them and get the results. It takes about thousands of runs, and we give the results as this. You can go and use this program. It's very friendly. You say what state you are, what practices you do as baseline, and for the county, it gives the results of water quality and quantity, and then you change that, and it's going to give you a different scenario that you're going to change something. Let's say you would cover crop. So this is a very attractive program for county level simulation, and it will be provided to users as it gets completed. Upcoming future release of version for modified Apex 1501. Again, modified because 1501 has some issues that we making sure anything new come to NTT is tested carefully with all these practices and sites that we have given to us and verified. And we want to find some problems, we modify it with some of this coding change that we have to do. Upcoming NTT program is science capabilities on all those things we have done previously. We continue doing that as feature. Region, state, beyond, we have done this and regional for county for Maryland and Iowa, but we continue doing that for the rest of the states. And pesticide and herbicides going to be added, and the bacteria, which I'm working on it as we speak for the next 2024 versions. So I will stop there. One sec of time. I promised Michelle that and her team that I will stay on time. So I'm really going to be keep your question please on this part, and I'm going to jump into the second part, which is getting some of this. Getting some practices, example file that we did.
You did great, Ali. In fact, you came in a little early, so you spoke for about 32 minutes, and you could have gone 4 more minutes on part 1. So you did fantastic, and now you have more time to go into the details of the demo. So go ahead and bring up your part 2 PowerPoint slides for your demo.
Let me see if I use my time to make sure that can you see my screen now with the overview?
Not yet.
Okay. Let's see. All right, let's see. Yes, my 4 minutes now gone to disk, right? All right, let's see if I can stop. Michelle, could you do me a favor? Can you put that second parts 2 in the screen? So in the case you share with me. You have that, correct?
Yes, we do. Aysha, is that something you could do, or would you like me to do it?
I can do it. Hold on.
Great.
And I would say next, so we can go forward with that.
And Ali, if you can stop sharing your screen, I don't know, I think Aysha can take it from you,
Yes.
but that would be helpful.
I did.
You. And so just, there are 2 questions in the interim you could take if you wanted to, and I know you're going to actually answer both of them, but while we're waiting, you want to click on Q&A, Ali, and answer the questions?
Yes, the question number 1 is evaluating nitrogen leaching into the groundwater. Yes. We go to the a kind of the last layer of soil, and anything past the root zone goes to be as the, we will tell you how much nitrogen and phosphorus and water pass through that zone. So we are assuming if it goes to water table, yes. The second question, when I go to the tool website on tier website, it takes for a user login and password. Do you need to account? Yes, we will talk about it in a few minutes as soon as this presentation shows up. We go through that. Well, thank you so much. I will get back to the rest of question at the end of this presentation. We're going to be demoing hypothetical farmers field on this, so you get familiar with what process. Assuming that's your field and you're working with the farmer, and this is going to happen. The next, please. In case we have example is that Iowa Solar Conservation District staff is working with a farmer to evaluate 6 practices scenarios to encourage adoption of his or her farm using NTT tool. Next, please. So the farm description. So we're going to go see what is the farmer's questions the farm is and what is practices the farmer do. Next, please. And so in this case, we have a farmer that tells us it's going to the chisel plow on April 5th and the corn soybean system. And on the 15th of April, it's going to add fertilizer for corn soybean of 180 pounds and 60 pounds of phosphorus. But in comes to soybean, only applies phosphorus, not nitrogen. On May 4th or 5th, the field cultivator on those two rotations, and May 15 and May 5 is going to plant corn, and May 15, the year the rotation comes, is going to plant soybean. And in the May 14 soybean is going to be, as I said, just 40 pounds of the phosphorus, not 60 pounds on that May 14. And October 10th is going to harvest corn, October 11 harvest soybean, and October 18, which is going to be tandem disc plow. So it's a kind of high-tail practice that the farmer is doing currently, and we're going to see what we're going to do next. The scenario you're going to be doing, we're going to looking at the no-till for this farmer, what's going to happen. And then we also combine two scenarios for this farmer. No-till and nutrient incorporation means that the not surface application incorporate, and then the cover crop. See what does it do for this farmer? And going back to because this farmer is in Iowa, we are going to do practice on the tile drain, bioreactor, the closed drain in the spring and open after the harvest, drainage, water management, and saturated buffer zone 60%. Tile was passed through the filter strip before it goes to water bodies. So these are the practices, 6 practices that we're going to do for farmers. Next one, please. So here's step 1. If you are going to run NTT, the first thing is that as the question came in, you will have to open a new account, and your new account is going to be very private. Nobody can get access to it except our programmers here, which they have no interest whatsoever. And the reason we keep this here, because in the case of issues or problem, we can resolve, but you also can request to be deleted, as we show you later. Then we don't have access to that either. So you can pass that program, your project, to someone else. Whatever you want to do is your personal, so because you got to go to your account, and we keep that account very private. So that's the first thing. In this page also, we're going to give you some information. You can watch this little video about NTT presentation, and you can contact us, some kind of interesting things you wanted to do. And then later on, we show you that you can go to forum and put your questions, and how you can look at the documentation in the NTT. They're all available in the bottom part of this program. Next, please. And so the second thing you're going to be creating is creating a project. If you had a project previously, you can upload that project from someone else came to you and says, well, I want you to look at it. So you can upload that project, and it's going to bring it up, or you're going to create a new project. This is just basically creating new projects. Is going to give you note that what is this project about, and name. So here we have an example here. So what is that you can do with your project? You can download it for your own reason to pass it on, or keep it on the archive. You can change the name. You can duplicate the project, and also you can delete it, correct? So this is a function page for the project page. Next, please. So here you go and select this field of interest, and it's very easy to do. You go through, you can have a shapefile. You just upload the shapefile. We tell you how to do it. These question marks next to of those items that you see, it gives you some direction. Also, help is available anytime. You can get to the help and bring that page for you what to do. And also you can put the address. If you don't have a shapefile, you can bring the address that where your farm is and get to the area, so you can select the fields. your geographical location. You can be latitude, longitude, it goes right there and give the field for you, or you go to state and county and zoom yourself to the where you want to be your farm. So there's a lot of ways to get to where your farm is. And then after you finish this, you can select number of farms, and that's basically 3 of this become your watershed, and your farm. So you have 3 fields within your farm, and then upload, submit the form. Once you submit the form, next please. You can even see, I put this as a cute thing slide, so you can see your farm as well if the Google truck passed by. So this is very important. Some people use NTT for buying land. They want to see what they're buying, so they use this sometime. But I just want to let you know you can see the farm that you're dealing with to matches to what you're going to see as slope and characteristics. Next, please. And then you're going to have field 1, field 2. The NTT going to create these fields for you that you selected and tell you what's the area that you are going to be doing the selection that you did. In this case, you can change the area if you click in this pencil. Pencil is always for changing characteristics of that item shows on the screen. So you can change the name, you can change the area if you think it's not correct, or you can delete the field here if you don't want to do that. Next, please. And once you do that, there's 2 soils version comes up. If you are in the farmers, I call it public version, you will see the only thing you can change is going to be the, I think it's, let's go back to, I don't have that slide here. The only thing you can change the organic matter in it, and then also soil texture and the soil P, initial soil P. You can put in that version. But in this version, which is the educational version, then you will be able to go to the layers and change everything. And again, optional. If you don't want to change anything, you don't have to do anything. There's no, if I say not a step, that means you don't have to do. It's optional. Next, please. And in here again, this is this is for public version. The only thing you can change is organic matter, because once we get from soil survey, it's not very much reliable. It might be changed. So you could do, if you have soil survey done in the field and change, and you can do the soil initial soil P, and then you can change the area, and that's the only thing you can do on the public, which we don't want farmers to get too much involved with this technical level that this research version does. Go next, please. And the research version is going to allow you to add soils, drop soils, go and say the layers, and this is more complicated, but this allow you to do the pages comes up, pops up, and then you can change the characteristics. If I was doing the research plots, I really want to get this information done. I use the research plot. And also for education in the classroom, if you're using NTT, you want to do to make sure Apex, you want to do this as an interface, then you want to make sure this done. Next, please. And then the also weather file is for RE version. So you can download the weather information, it pops up for you, we select it for you. But if you're doing the research plot, you want to put your own weather file, allow you to do it. Or you can test NTT on your farm practices in Arizona from Iowa, you can allow the weather be uploaded from Arizona. And if you have some sort of future weather that you have come up with to see what happens on the drought or wet years, you can allow you to change those. That's what we're going to be using for climate change later on, this function. And then you can do the simulation year, what year to year. But this is not available in public version. Next, please. And that's basically was it. The rest of it is very much a little bit more of RE version, research and educational version, but the rest is very similar. So now we come to the beef of the matter, which is the management. So your field geometry is uploaded, your soil is uploaded, the weather is uploaded. Now the only thing you need is a management. So you can create a new scenario, and that means a new cropping system whatsoever. And then you can copy scenario from other project you have, and you want to test it on this project, you can copy and paste it here. You don't have to retype it. And also the water quality can be simulated, or both economic and water quality simulation can be done. Once you do that, you can view results of environmental or economic as well. And here's the function. Again, you can download the Apex file for your classroom and analysis for research, but this is only for the RE version. FEM files as well. You can download for all there's a transparency. You can download all the farm FEM files. You can modify the name by using this of your scenario, and you can duplicate your scenario. That's a really good function because you want to go the same scenario, but you just want to change one little thing. So that allow you to do duplication, and you can delete the scenario. So this is a function. So also in this page, you will see on the side, you can do the water quality results after you finish your management simulation as well. You can use the all years of simulation. You can specific years. You can do dry years. You can do wet years, and it's going to pick up those for you automatically and show you. Graphical results, we're going to show you again on this next later on. The annual results, monthly results, to see what month is most significant for you to pay attention to your practices, and economic results. And the RE version has utility file. Utility files are for Apex. Again, this is a interface for Apex. Allow you to change the parameters and so on. I'll show you later on. And the watershed scale that we're using, and also the economic input information. That economic input for information also for RE version, not for public, because they don't need to deal with it. We don't want it complicated for public version. Next, please. And then it comes to management, create scenarios. Once you create a scenario, it's going to ask you for add a crop rotation, corn, and then you add soybean, you can put wheat, you can we don't recommend more than 5-0 rotation because the model needs to have duplication of different weather within those 35 years. So we think 5 times is good. So you don't want it more than 5 years rotation. But nevertheless, you can do your rotation for first year something and then year 7 something else. So I allow you to do that as well. Just want to let you know. And once you do that, add the new operation, you can do add operation, the tillage and so on. If you want what they give you as a default is not satisfactory, you can do that. You can add cover crop, you can switch the view. We'll go through this a little bit and modify practices back to management scenarios and continue to BMPs. We show you that as we demonstrate. Next, please. So the add crops, and this is one of these. Select one. In this case, I select corn. It's in the bottom is example. And I said, what is the tillage operation? Is intensive, high, low, no till? The model picks up the databases, which have been collected relatively to area that in the United States. So if you are in Iowa, corn, soybean, wheat comes up. If you are in Idaho, potato comes up. So there is very much, we have created management and nitrogen and phosphorus application based on the yield expected yield. So there's a lot of work has been done to get this done to the databases to make life easy. So all I have to do now, this is year 1. And if I was replacing another crop, I just push this box and it's replaced in the one I had before. Other than that, you just upload. So you upload. Next one, please. And once you do that, if you were going to cover crop, for example, here, select vegetation, we have a list of cover crops that are available to you. And then it says what year and when you planning those, and planning method that you're going to do, overcast or drill or whatever. And that just say add cover crop. So the model is very smart. It goes look at that date you planted the cover crop, which is basically example end of corn, and it's going to be coming to the next year rotation. It's going to kill that cover crop, and I'm waiting for soybean to be planted. So you don't have to do anything on the date you want to do to kill that cover crop, unless you're using that cover crop for cash crop. Like, you want to plant it in the fall, and then also harvest and kill by spring, next spring. So that allow you have to go and add the crop rotation for that. So there's option there. Next one, please. And then here it is. You can view this in two ways as it shows up, and we pick up the default management for you. And then the next, please. And then this is going to be, if you push the plus sign that it was on the last slide, this will show up. And it tells you applied 180 pounds of nitrogen. And then if you want to change the characteristics of that application, you push the button on the pencil and it gives you this table. Your crop one was this. When you applied, you can change the date. Again, you copy the scenario and you change the copied scenario as your alternative conservation practices and change these items. Then you select one fertilizer at a time. We have all types of fertilizer for you, the database, and the application, how much, and depth. If you are incorporating, you change this to a number. 3 inches typically suggested, and you can change the components of nitrogen here as well if you want to. If you were having to do manure, which also liquid manure or solid manure, it gives you a list of animals that you were applying the manure from and allow you to do different things as well. Then you need to put the information such as the manure moisture content as well. So if you were going to do the tillage operation as a second pop-up table shows you, you can do all those practices that we think is being done in the continent of the United States. Then you can use those tillage operation and it's available to you. And if you go to places that add more tillage operation, we upgrade this table for them in that location. So anyway, these are kind of changes you can do. And you can observe this on this way. And the next one, please, allow you to also see a typical version of how the practices. You also can change things here as well. So there's a 2 views that you can have or your management practices. Next, please. After you do that, then you will allow you to go ahead and do this conservation practices with a structural one. Irrigation. If you do irrigation, due to time, I cannot go through all of this, but as I said to Michelle, I'll be happy in individual contact me. We go through demonstration detail for you at any time you wish. If I couldn't, my staff will be there for you. But nevertheless, the tile drain, for example, you're going to say, what is the tile drain? Example, I turn it on 4 feet deep or 3 feet deep. And then if you have bioreactor, you click on this. I show you a slide how these things work because we are simulating these practices for the hypothetical farmers here. So you can have wetland, you can, and all you have to do was the size of wetland. We create a wetland for you about 1 foot deep, and then we put a crop for you to grow in it. Pond, water sediment control, you can say what's the percentage of water in the field goes to the pond. The stream fencing, there's a little more of to do this with, we could ask questions. Everything you put here, we have guideline, and in the table that pops up gives you a guideline. A stream bank stabilization and so on. And all these practices we talk about is going to be available to you. And you don't have to do one at a time, you do combination as well. Next, please. And then also here's the bioreactor, for example. Water in this bioreactor is very simple. You just click and then we just simulate through the, this is the what we gave us to Iowa standards, how much bioreactor reduced nitrogen only. But here you have drainage water management. You can add dates when you open and close your water drainage system in your field, because we don't know what you do. We cannot just put one date for you. You have to help us to do it, and the model simulate for you. Next one, please. Oh, I'm sorry, go back to the last page. And here is the saturated buffer. If you have a saturated buffer, you tell us how much of the water from drainage passed through. Also, you have to create, it doesn't let you do this unless you create this grass buffer or forest buffer, because you got to have buffer before the simulation can be done. So they automatically ask you to do it, and that's the way you create this. Next, please. And then once you've done this simulation, all you have to do water quality simulation, mark those scenarios you want to run and select them. And if you select all, it's going to select everything. But if you run one time, you don't need to repeat because of time. So you can select the specific scenario and push the button water quality simulation and economic. And water quality is one of those. Okay, next. We're going to look at the outputs, tabular, and then also we're going to look at graphic. Please, next. So the tabular one is that all year, dry year, wet year, you can do any of those. And scenario, we were looking at the high till, no till, and cover crop, and then and no till with 3-inch fertilizer. As you see the high till results, and then we give you all components of nitrogen and flow and phosphorus. And so because we don't want you, total N doesn't satisfy. You don't know if it's sediments attached or it's the soluble one. So we give you those. So every practice you do out there is going to have a different effect on nitrogen type or phosphorus type. So we give you all. And then the question was, is it going to be deep percolation? Yes, we give you deep percolation, nitrogen, and deep percolation, how much flow passes through root zone. So you can see from high till it went to no till, my goodness, you reduce significantly the runoff N, because now you're keeping the nitrogen under the ground. We told the Chesapeake Bay, if they do that, they're going to be 30% average of saving nitrogen not to go to Chesapeake Bay. And that's the practice they're really looking at that. And if you have a cover crop with a lawn, and then you see how much reduction in nitrogen it is, and the sediments we're going to show you next is going to be reduced. And if you have no tillage and 3-inch depth, you're doing as well, so good. So these are kind of practices show you which one of those is very applicable and I can do. And then when you look at the economic part of this, you say, wow, this is what I wanted to do. So you have the same program, your government has the same government program. All of you can look at the same NTT page and then agree and then become more obligation to do it. Next, please. And then we give you the carbon sequestration. Again, this is per how much saving you do. Look at it from 1.116. This is per acre. Multiply 100 is going to be, let's say, a 1.16 jumps to 5.7. So you do a lot of saving of carbon sequestration, and NTT newest coming version is going to give you that information, and the crop yield. And you see that this incorporation not only help your environment factors such as nitrogen and phosphorus reduction, also increase your yield. What farmer doesn't want to do that? So, but the information has not available to farmer to this detail. They need to be shared. And also we give you the stresses. If your yield is low, we give you diagnosis like a doctor, they look at your heart, whatever, that analysis, and they'll tell you that what is it that you need to add. Don't buy irrigation if you think yield is low. Water is okay, but nitrogen is not, or phosphorus is not. So it's a diagnosis for pH stress, temperature stress, and nitrogen. So that diagnosis is going to be added to this version for you. Next, please. And here is the drain that you did different simulation. Again, sometimes this is difficult to do, to see. The graphic is going to help you, going to show you. But again, when you do that, doing the bioreactor, you're reducing about 16% of the nitrogen in this case. And if you do drainage management, you're reducing, there's something wrong here, but you will reduce. I guess I have not updated the new page on this, but we will show you graphically how you reduce the nitrogen and phosphorus and this under this treatment and saturated buffer. Would be the next, please. And the graphic results. Now the graphic results, next, please. You can see the scenarios. You can go to the graphic and says what year to what year you want to see the results. And here I have a soil carbon, for example, and I have a baseline and baseline no-till, and also baseline cover crop oats after corn and soybean with no-till, and baseline no tillage and incorporation. So you can see how much carbon we save as we go along with this for this year's simulation. Again, this is for the total area that we are dealing with. So this gives you the idea. Also the corn yield, and then you say, what, wait a minute, if I incorporate a no-till, my yield goes up, as you saw it on the tabular form. So this is a very good way to see. And again, all of these things, I believe you can PDF and get those records for your files. Next one, please. And here it is, the practices that we do again. And you see under the high till how much we are losing. So I mean, the flow is higher, and then it reduces by these practices we do. And then the sediment reduction is significant when you do the no-till. It's a very significant. Also, some of those practices that when you incorporate the nitrogen and your yield goes up, it's not just that. It just increases your residue from your yield as well, protect your ground better. It's sort of cover crop by itself. So there's a lot of complexity again, because we are not using the statistical relationship, it's all physical based. It gives you a very comprehensive look. And it's because this program also does deal with the atmospheric carbon and so on. It gives you also both of it. Also the advantage of using practices for sequestration carbon, also the water quality. You might put manure and get the more residue and get rest reduction, the more so-called sequestration, but at the same time, you're increasing the water quality issues that is going to be on the water. So NTT in this way, this program allow you to see the whole enchilada. You just see the comprehensive look at everything. So next, please. And here are some other factors on nitrogen. You see that by practicing no-till, you really reduce the organic N. And also when you incorporate in the field under the ground, which is very much not costly, causes the surface runoff reduction as well. So again, these are examples that you can evaluate. And when this in the PowerPoint comes to you, you can look at more detail. Next, please. And again, this is on the phosphorus. You can see that the tile drain phosphorus is going to be increased a little bit, because what you do is incorporation that eventually tile system has to take it out a little bit. But in the total is reduction is factor. Next one, please. And here I like to do tile drain and flow. And I thought this is a, bioreactor. So the red one, you see that it's a bioreactor, does not affect the drainage, what do you call flow or anything that much. But it comes to the nitrogen, you see that reduction happened in the second graph because of the bioreactor. And if you look at the nitrogen from the water management, which you hold on to water not to go to the tile, and during the cultivation time, you can see that is reduced significantly as well, the nitrogen losses to the water body. It is exactly what the literature says. And once you do the saturated waters, because of also filter stream effect, reduction has become more significant. If you look at the tile P, the only scenario that is going to affect your phosphorus at this moment is the water management drainage water management, which is you holding the nitrogen and phosphorus in the soil, and the NTT is sensitive to that. So, but other than that, the saturated water zone right now works for nitrogen, not for phosphorus. Next, please. And you can see the annual monthly graphic report as well. in NTT. So you can say, well, wait a minute, if I'm in California, I need to look at the month of January, December, because that's where the most of the rain happened. But here in Iowa, you have to pay attention to April and May, where the significant runoff is happening, and see what can I do to protect my land from this happening. So that is basically just give you another view of NTT. Next, please. Watershed simulation. Okay, next, please. So you can go to each of those fields. We simulated the scenarios for each of those fields, and then you can pick up one scenario from each field and say what that combination is going to do as a farm or watershed for me. So you can select a scenario from each of those fields and add to this. We created a scenario called watershed scenario 1, and then we just add one practice from each field. So to see what the comprehensive output from that's going to happen. Next, please. And you can see the watershed, the scale, the scenario we're on, and that's the baseline, I assume. And then it's also, anyway, we didn't do that, but we need to create one from baseline. It means the high till for all these 3 fields. And then the second scenario should have been this, which is selecting the BMP from each of those and see how much reduction is going to happen. And unfortunately, we did not that comparison. I tried to fix this slide and send it to Michelle before we send it to you, so you see the differences. Next, please. Economic, and then next, please. So you can see for all these practices you do as well, how much the revenue is, how much cost is, and the net return to you for all those practices you do. So that gives you farmers some warming feeling that is, I want to get involved with this. I'm not going to lose my my house. So this gives you the cost associated with all those practices, and then the net return. Next one, please. And the utility files just for RE version allow you to do the parameters, sub area, soil operation, anything goes to Apex, as you can manage here and change it without going outside the program. Next, please. And then this is our information. We call it the general information, your gasoline prices, you know, this, that is changing daily. Farmer can use this to change. But the other page, next, please. And these are for economists. So you don't want to be dealing with that, but you can be modified at the state level for the program. And or we'd be happy to do it by giving us the task to do it for each state. But these are changing as well. Not much, but they changed. Next, please. And then more of this supplies, facilities, so you can show you that how FEM is sensitive to all of those things. Next, please. And the utility files available, which I mentioned that we don't need to look at this anymore. Next, please. And I am done. I apologize. The time is so valuable, and I went maybe through some of the slides very fast, but I stuck with my time as I promised to Michelle, but I am available. My staff is available. Any specific interest in this program and detailed questions, we'll be happy to communicate with you.
Yeah, that was a great presentation. We've got some questions over in the Q&A, and I'll just kind of start from the top. I think you answered this first one, but if you have anything to add, is evaluating nitrate leaching into groundwater within the capabilities of this tool?
Yes, it is. As we show that the output shows you how much passed through root zone, which is typically about 2 meters, and whatever goes past through it, Apex has water table components to this, and we set it up, and we assuming anything goes more than 2 meters is going to end up with the water table.
Yep. And just Kinsey, he's already answered the first 2, so we could go to the next view.
Okay. I didn't see Washington State listed as an area that this tool has been used. Presumably some calibration and validation would be needed before this tool could be used in a new location. How would it be possible to engage in order to move forward with developing this tool for use in Washington State?
As a matter of fact, we are very close to you because of in the eastern part of the state, Yakima, we did some study and we added the cropping system that is typically in Washington State. So we are not too far. And also we have done so much on Oregon. Nevertheless, we need contact me, please, and I will be giving you a very precise way to get this adopted for Washington. But we will add the generality to the Washington this year sometime. Part of the states we need to do for all of them. So, but that's just going to be the generality. But definitely we'd love to talk to the questioner to see if we can adopt it for them.
The next question comes from an anonymous attendee. How often is this tool used with SWCD/other agricultural organizations? Is there an example of an SWCD who utilizes this tool frequently, or success stories from farmers who use this tool?
Yeah, the thing is that, as I said, we are researcher. We are providing the science as we are supposed to the public. We don't know how many people use this. We know some of them, like the state of Iowa, that they are communicating with us and they're going to be using. But nevertheless, about two companies that I don't know if I should their name, but the two companies that they have, I think about altogether about 9 internet sites set up for them altogether, and they run about 500,000 fields already. And they are mostly in Oregon, in Idaho, in Iowa, and I don't remember, but there are states that they're running through them. We know how much officially run through their communication. But other than that, we don't know. We know some Maryland is using and some Pennsylvania as well. But our job is not to mandate or tell people use or not to use.
Okay, the next question, is there a master list of crops and management offered in the system, and is it possible to share and import management?
Yes, if every state you go, every location you go, it pops up those default management. For example, when we go to Iowa, I think its yields are much higher now, but they're expecting to see 180 bushels of corn. You go to store and they say multiply 0.9, you get this. So we come up with that expected yield, and we have developed, this took a lot of time, but for every part of the country, we expected yield for different crops, could be rice in Louisiana, whatever. We can calculate that. So when we do simulation, making sure is in the ballpark. But those are available through selection of the sites at this moment. You can see those default managements.
The next question, what carbon reduction markets or sustainability accept the NTT calculation?
It is the market that is soil health is a very important issue. At this time, we are looking at the soil health, and that's it's going to be carbon sequestration. And the thing is different with this entity is this. Let me give you one couple of words on that. The goodness about this. Entity is not looking at the monthly practices. Every day is a daily run model. Every day you do something, is going to calculate the carbon or nutrients and anything, water, everything. And then we look at the water balance as the detail here and the nutrient balance. So it does calculate that effect of that tillage on carbon. So the cumulative for annual value is going to be daily values that accumulation happen. So if you saw the results, if you do no-till, suddenly your carbon sequestration goes up because you're not disturbing the soil, correct? So that's I feel very comfortable with the results that we get from this.
Okay, the next question comes from Greg. Can the watershed routing of fields be connected to a specific watershed, such as the HUC 12 watershed?
Yes, if you, that's what we're working on. But if you download the shapefile, remember at the beginning of your watershed, we did this for 2 with help from ARS in Oklahoma. One was their watershed there, one was in California. We had to do some modification manually. We are making those more sort of the automatic this year. But that's the watershed you put out there is going to take the sub-basin, and we are going to have to divide the sub-basin. There is a that we need to divide to make sure land uses within the sub-basin is respected. We don't want to make it one big sub-basin in apex be corn. There's urban, there's this, that. So that's what I say, the urban is going to be added. We're trying to make it real watershed. But we emphasize we do, which I recommend to our colleagues in Vietnam, for example. The complexity of watershed is that there are so many land uses. The idea here is that we will keep the urban and improve that as well, but we want to make sure as a background so we can look at the agricultural land alone in that sub-watershed and see what management practice says affects at the sub-basin, at the field, at the sub-basin, and the other watershed. But that is being worked out right now too. But you can upload your watershed shapefile, and it's going to respectively give you the databases at this time. But we're working out to make sure within the sub-basin that the data is being, management is being exercised as well.
And so the last question we have here is, are you able to export results from multiple projects into a CSV or tabular format?
I think in multiple project means that if you're talking about individual project, we will, I don't know that question very carefully, but maybe I don't exactly understand, but if you have a project, you can get PDF, of course, and CVS as form, as the thing is Excel file it gives you. But combining the project, if you are doing different fields and you call it different project, then you can go ahead and use the watershed function and give the results at the outlet of that watershed. We call it farm as well. But again, those are kind of things doable in the case there is a special need. We have done a lot of changes that comes to your attention. This presentation was done by requests and needs of the people out there. So we'll be happy to address those. Our job is here to make sure everybody is happy with this and address their issues.
All right. That is all the questions that I had in the chat.
Oh, one open question.
One open question.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm thinking if you run 2 separate models, is there a CSV export that will collate both of those results?
Yes, the economic and environmental is going to be on your PDF file results. You see it separately, but it's going to be combined as one as a PDF file.
Super. Well, we can pause just a little bit before we switch to our final slide. This has been fantastic, Ali. I'm very impressed. You covered all your slides so well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. No, I apologize to our audience. Again, this is not to give you the whole story, to just open the story, first chapter or 2, depending how you take it. But nevertheless, we have, again, an entity. Michelle, can you, whoever is having the sites right now open, can you open the entity file program? I want to show you something in the bottom part of that.
Aysha, is that possible?
Just running entity-RE, whatever.
You mean go back to part 2, Ali?
No, just the general on the internet.
Oh, no, I don't think we can at this time.
All right.
Aisha's in a library.
It's okay. So we have access to a lot of those information that you can provide to us through means of communication, connection directly. We have a forum that you can put your question, and we try to answer those questions in the forum so others can benefit from the others that they question those.
Indeed. And I wanted to just share with everyone who's still on with us that the several slides that you saw today in tabular form at the beginning of the talk, this snapshot of features of every tool, the strengths and the limitations slides, you know, we've asked all of our presenters to try to complete those in order for you, the audience, to be able to figure out pretty quickly and early on in the talk if the tool might be the right tool to fit your outcomes estimation needs. So I hope that you valued that, and you'll let us know in the evaluation survey if that worked for you, and you'll be seeing that coming up with the next presenters. So with that, we'll just thank Ali so much for the time and effort you put into this for us and with us, and we're grateful for your friendship and your collaboration, and we look forward to many people blowing up your email so that you have lots of new people to work with. Aysha, I'll turn it over to you.
Before you go, Michelle,
Yes.
I will update a couple of slides on this presentation,
Okay.
especially the second one, and send it to you.
Great.
And I just want to make sure this is your program. We're the people's program. We are not sitting here and selling it out to anyone unless there's extra services we have to do. Just that.
Sure. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar. And I'm going to go over some next steps in our collective outcomes quantification journey. So first, we look forward to you joining us at some or all of our next set of tools training webinars that will be held on the first Wednesday of every month, except January, which will be held on the second Wednesday due to the neighboring holiday. If you can't make it to one or more of the webinars, but want to view the session, the recording should be available the following Monday. Second, at the end of the webinar, please share your feedback with us by answering a quick 6-question survey. Kinsey shared the link at the beginning of the session, and it will also appear as a new tab in your internet browser when the webinar ends. Please take a couple of minutes to share your feedback so we can keep improving these events. Michelle and I are also offering free coaching sessions to the now 7 project managers who secure a session with us. These sessions are individually tailored to you in order to help you figure out which tools or methods are right for your projects. If you're interested, just email me, Aysha Tapp Ross, at the subject line coaching request. My email address is right there. And finally, if you'd like a free print copy of the guide to be mailed to you, you can place that order online at the report's website, which you can easily find using keywords AFT Outcomes Tools.
Excellent. Well, thank you so very much, Aysha, Kinsey, and Dr. Saleh. This has been fantastic. I hope you all got a lot of use out of this time you shared with us, and then you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.